Hi everyone, and welcome back to another FreeCAD surfacing tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll understand how to create this surface here and create this surface using trim techniques in the Curves Workbench. We'll be looking at something called an overbuilt surface. This is a technique that I learnt about during the days that I used to use Rhino 3D, and the process is very similar. We're going to be using the Curves Workbench, which is installed through the add-on manager, and we're going to be using the trim tool with multiple surfaces. So I hope you enjoy these videos, and let's have a look at this technique.
If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Coffee at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos.
So first of all, we're going to look at an overbuilt surface that's been used to create this chair. I first simplified this down so it's just the chair itself rather than the base and the legs. There has been a number of fillets on this chair and also a sphere taken out from the center here. So I'm just going to remove those. You can see the sphere here that's been used to cut away. Now I've removed all the fillets, you can see we've got this object now. We've got cutouts here. And if I bring back the overbuilt surface, the loft, you can see what's happened. So we've used a surface that's larger than the object itself. A simplified surface that we can use to trim away from. So we've trimmed away this here and this shape here from that surface. I'm just going to delete the offset. And now we get to the point of seeing what the surface looks like. So we've got two surfaces now, the overbuilt one and the trimmed one. Trimming is done from the Curves Workbench. So this is an add-on, and we can install it from the tools and the add-on manager. With the trim tool, we can trim in a number of ways. With this one, if I come into the trim face, I have the original surface and click on it. You see the tool we've used is the join curves. And if I could bring back the join curves, we see that we've used a basic slot. I can line that up, project that onto my surface. If I hide the loft, you can see how that's been removed from there. The join curve itself has been created from a sketch. And this is a simple sketch that lines up with the feature that I want to remove. Our trim tool is not just restricted to a single join curve. So if I come back and close that, I've created this as a single join curve in here using that sketch with the join curve. It's not just restricted to that. For instance, I could take this curve that goes all the way around here and remove it again from the loft. We'll see a demonstration of that in the practical demonstration. So if I delete this trim face and the join curve and the sketch, we're now left with the loft, which is the overbuilt surface, and a sketch on surface. So this is a shape that's been sketched upon the loft. So if I come into the sketch on surface, we've got a map sketch that maps to that loft. You see the loft has been unraveled here. And that's a case of taking the loft. I'm going to delete the sketch on surface and that map sketch. And we'll create another one. So I'm going to select the loft, face that loft, and create a sketch on surface. Inside that sketch on surface, we get a mapped sketch. I can double click and I can add my map sketch to this surface here. So this surface area is this area of the loft. One problem is that it deforms. And this is where you may want to use something like a trim face to overcome that. Let's close that and we'll just delete that. The loft itself has been made from sketches. So this is the overbuilt surface made by a number of sketches. So 3 sketches there, and they're basic B-splines. So we look at them, the B-splines, and what's happened is that we created one, copied it, and moved it along the Y and the Z axis. So my original was the middle one here, this one here. If I double click that, sketch 1, you can see that's just a simple B-spline. Look at the placement, the position, set 0, 0, and it's got a small adjustment on the Z. This can be adjusted when the loft is added. So if I zero this out, see how that loft changes, getting a different effect. And let's go back to that sketch. I'll place back, say -5, just to bring that down to create that curvature. Once I'm happy with the overbuilt surface, that gives the initial shape for the curvature. You notice that I've used mirrors. So I've got a mirror of the sketch. Now there's a reason why I haven't mirrored the loft itself. So created 3 B-spline curves and then created the loft and offset the loft and mirrored it, because when we offset this, we'll see a different result. So if we offset this and put this up to say 5 and fill the offset, you see we get a nice curvature going across there. If I try to do this with one side, let's delete that loft. And I've got these 2 mirrors in here. If I delete the mirror, what will happen? It will release the sketch from within, so the one that's been mirrored from. Delete that mirror. And this one as well. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. So I want to create a loft across here using the loft tool. In the part workbench, select the sketches, sketch 1, sketch 2, placing them in order. Double click and sketch 3, making sure the ruled surface is unchecked. We don't get a straight surface going through those profiles. You see we have this surface. Now if I offset this using the offset tool, 3D offset, using part 3D offset, set this to 5 and fill the offset. We see we have this curvature coming around here, but when we try to mirror this by clicking the offset and using the mirror tool along the XZ plane. So think of the plane going along here, and we see that it's this plane here, the XZ. Okay, that. We get a successful mirror, but look how they join. They don't join properly. We get this gapping in here. So when we come to fuse it using the union, so coming into the offset mirror, open this up, click the offset, control click the offset mirror, use the union. It creates a fusion. Let's just click on this one here, which is, look at the data. This is the loft itself. This is the loft itself, so I'm going to just push the space bar on that. You can see we've still got that gapping in there. And that's caused from mirroring that loft. Let's just delete that. There is one problem with using a curves workbench, curve on surface process for doing this. So using that curves on surface tool. So looking back to the original loft, if I take the loft, click that, and use the sketch on surface, you get that sketch on surface there. Double click the matte sketch. If I place geometry within this section here, Let's say a slots geometry, something like this. So we've got that there. If I hit close, you can see we get this deformation that runs along here. So we're getting some deformation here. And we may want to say, come in and add some side arms like this. And keep these in 2 in line. Trim out this edge here using the trim tool. It's doing it roughly, and you can see we've got the side arms now. But we don't have much control over the shape. You see it's being stretched and deformed. The more accurate way of doing this is to use a number of sketches and use this tool here, the trim face. So let's get rid of that sketch on surface. And what I want to do is find a projection that allows me to create a sketch on this surface. Because if we look at this, if we create a projection from here, so if I create a sketch upon the YZ plane, then if I created a slot going through this object, then it wouldn't be projected into the base here. So we need this face onto the camera. So what the trim on surface does is that it will project from a camera position. So if this was our camera position and we add a sketch in here, it will project from this position. I want to project it from something like this position. But how do we get a sketch in this position looking upon here? Well, this is where our original sketches come in handy. So I'm going to show my first sketch and my last sketch and hide the loft. So you can see those sketches there. Now, if we think about where they sit and click on the loft and show that loft, you can see that if we created, say, some kind of plane that sits planar to these 4 points, then we should be straight on to that surface. So it'd be something like this, that loft. We can do that by coming over to the sketcher and using attachment. So normally when we create a sketch, we can select a face or make sure nothing's selected and create a sketch and pick what plane it's going to be on. But this is not going to help us with a plane that needs to go here. So if we select each of these vertices, and what I'm going to do is select and control select the mirror and come down to the view tab and look at the point size. We'll bring out the point size to about 8 so we can see those vertices in there. I'm going to select one, control select the other, and the same for the bottom 2 as well. With those 4 vertices selected, I'll create a sketch. What's happened is the sketch, if we look, has been laid across these vertices, like so. So if we think about, let's bring this around this way. If we think about, go back to the model and the loft, and we look at how that's been projected, you can see that the sketch sits planar to these points. Trouble is, now I've changed my viewpoint, how do I get back to basically this viewpoint here, where it's something like this? Well, the easiest way is to come up to the top and we have this sketch with a magnifying glass. I click that, we're basically back to where we was when we entered the sketch. You can see, well, we're around the wrong side. I could either use a section view, cut through that, hit that icon, and I can create my sketch upon here. Or I could come out, go to the task, hit close. I know my sketch is around the wrong way, so I can click on the sketch, come into the data tab, Map reverse at the moment is false for the sketch. Bring this down, set this to true. That'll flip it around the other way. So when I go back in, we're now around the right way. Let's reset that view and sketch something upon here. I think I'm going to go for a slot geometry. We can put whatever shape we want upon here. Attach it to vertical axis. For redundant constraint, just click that and hit delete. I'll pull down this center point down. And the same with this one to here. So I've got this shape in here. As said, it doesn't have to be a slot. We could use the polyline or the B-spline and create the shape that we want in here. Let's hit close. So now what I've got is this shape here. Now I'm going to have the same problem. I want to have this flat onto the camera. I'm lucky in that I can select this edge here and have this flat on, but let's say that I haven't got that option. I need to project this slot upon this surface from this viewpoint. So I need to somehow have some kind of plane that, say, I could double click and it'll flip me around to this viewpoint so I can project properly. In the draft workbench, there is such a tool. Come over to the draft workbench. And what we'll do is just full screen this so we can see. We're going to create a proxy plane. So what a proxy plane does, it'll create a plane that can be used to flip our view around to certain viewpoints. So we can save our viewpoint. First of all, we need to achieve that viewpoint. Notice where the grid sits. So the grid sits at the bottom here upon the top plane. And we'll bring this around. So we see that it's on the X, Y plane. I need to bring this grid around so it sits upon this sketch here. So I'm going to click the sketch. First of all, click off and then click the sketch. So that whole sketch is highlighted in green. Now, if I come up to the top onto utilities and select plane, the grid is aligned with that sketch. Now that grid is aligned with that sketch, I can make sure that nothing's selected and use the same option, utilities, and select plane. Because nothing's selected, we get a panel along the left-hand side. I want to select this center view. If I click that, I'm now looking at the correct view. Just use pan and zoom to get this into position that you want. If I wanted to rotate it around, say this way, I'll just use the rotate on the cube. I can now make a proxy plane. So nothing's selected at the moment. Come to utilities and come down to create working plane proxy. So that proxy is now upon the working plane. What this means is that I could put this into position, say like this. Double click the working plane proxy and it's flipping around to the right view. So now we've got our proxy set up. I can hide the grid, come down to the bottom, hide that grid, and we'll return to the cursor workbench. There's workbench there. I'm going to select the sketch. So this sketch here. I'm going to join all the edges together to make it a B-spline object. Select the sketch, come up to curves, and select the join curves. Also available on the menu here. What's happened is that sketch has become one single edge. So you see it running around this way. We're going to learn how to use the trim tool. So the trim tool itself sits here and requires two selections. First, need to hide the working plane because I can select the working plane from the screen, which I don't want. This will affect the selection of our surface. So I'm going to come into the working plane and press the space bar so it's hidden. Now the proxy plane is hidden. I'm just going to place this in a projection, a random projection. So let's place it like this so we can demonstrate that trim tool. The trim tool sits here, trim face, and it works by first selecting the surface and then control selecting our join curve. or a curve, an edge, etc. Notice the projection that the camera is at the moment. And also notice where I placed the mouse pointer first when I selected the surface. So I placed it here and then selected this edge. If I use the trim now, it trims out the surface, keeping the part that I selected. If I look to the left-hand side, I've got a trim face here. Inside that, I have a loft, which I can bring back and trim again and link the faces together. First of all, let's delete the trim face and go from the same projection. I've lost my loft, so I'm going to click on the loft to press the space bar to show it. So I'm going from the same projection, but this time I'm going to select inside the slot. So I'm selecting the loft through the inside of that join curve. Now I'm going to control select the join curve and use the trim. Notice that the trim now has been taken inside the join curve. So we get this now from that projection. Let's delete the trim face, click on the loft and press the spacebar. So projection is key when we're using this tool. So we use a proxy plane to get us into the projection that we want. Now I can press the spacebar because the proxy plane is selected. Get rid of that. Make sure we have the right sketch available. So I've got the sketch here. I need to press the spacebar to hide that and just have the join curve. I want to keep the surface in the middle. So this part here. Click the surface inside the boundaries of the join curve and then control select the join curve. Use the tool or come out to surface and trim face. We trimmed that face from that projection. So we've got that projection now. We can create additional sketches and trim and join the faces together. So let's come back. We've got the trim face. Inside the trim face, you'll find the loft here. Press the space bar. So we've got that there. And we need, let's say, from this position, I want to create, say, some tabs that come up here. We just use a basic rectangle for that. Come over to the sketcher. And we'll create a sketch. Make sure nothing's selected, because I'm going to create a sketch using the basic planes, the XZ plane. So let's create a sketch along the XZ plane and hit OK. You see that there. I'm going to use the view section through, and we'll create a rectangle from the front. Let's come in and create something like this. It's okay, let's close that. It may be too far, but what we need to do now is move that rectangle. So I want to take that rectangle, that sketch. I'm going to move it so it's outside this side. Take that sketch, look at the placement, look at the position, use a coordinate system to find the direction of movement, which is along the Y axis. Look towards the Y. So let's move this using the up arrow, move it just outside, like so. We don't have to make a proxy because it's just this plane here. So we can line ourselves up. We're going to have to trim some excess as well, so you can see the rectangle and this edge here. We need to trim that as well. From the rear, looking towards the curves workbench for our tool. So first of all, select the sketch. We need to join that together because we will need one single edge using the join curves. One single edge now. If I select that, we've got one single edge. Now, the first thing I want to do is come into the trim face and hide that, so we don't accidentally select the trim face and trim that away. So now we'll go through the process. First of all, we need the projection, which is around about here. Click on rear and select the surface I want to keep, which is going to be inside this boundary. So select that. Then control select the boundary itself, which is the join curve. Control select that. Then use the tool, the trim tool. Now I see that we've trimmed, but we have a bit of a problem. It's trimmed, but you can see that it has failed. So if we adjust that sketch, come into the sketch, and well, we can't see what's failed. Let's come around to this side. That's better. So we can see our other sketches in here, and I'm going to bring back the trim face itself. Click on that and press the space bar. So you can see what's failed. Let's pull this to the right hand side. And now, because I've adjusted that, it's actually taken. Now, the reason why that refreshed straight away, so you can see that's refreshing as I pull that across, I've put it back to the state that it is before, is that I've got, come on to the task, this button here, if I drop that down, I've got the auto update checked. So I'm going to uncheck that. That's the default state where it hasn't been checked. That means if I move this now, you can see, well, it's not auto updating. I would have to use a refresh to allow that to update. But with that as auto update, I can make amendments and figure out what kind of surface that I want. So I want something like that. So I've got that there. I hit close. So I've got the surface on that side that I want. And that's bring back the other trimmed face. But look at it. I want to bring it down a bit further. So I want it connecting to this surface. Come back to the sketch, double click that. Come around to this side. Come back to the model. I want the trim face, I want that visible. Press the space bar. And we'll come over to the task and just make sure the auto update is checked. So I can make my adjustments I want it intersecting that surface there, like so. Make this a bit longer if we wanted to. Bring it around to the other side, bring it around there. So I have those two wings on that side. Let's close that now. What I've got is now two trimmed faces. Come into here, you can see they've got a loft here. That loft is being used across both those trim faces. It looks a bit messy. It's two surfaces. And if we look, they're two separate surfaces that need union together. We can do that in the part workbench. They may look separated as well. So if I come back and look at the trim face and look at the sketch, and we'll show that trim face as well. Bring this around the other side. There we go. And I'll make just one sketch on one side. So we'll bring this up. Something like that. Bring it down a little bit. So I'm intersecting both those. Go to task and hit close. So we have to union these together. But the problem is that we've got this overlap. We could go and union this together as it is, but we'll get an extra face. So if I come over to part workbench, we don't need all of these join curves or all of these curves here. So I can click on them, press the space bar, get rid of those. So we could join those together, but I don't want this face here. So if I select one, control select the other, we could use the union. Union those two together. It's going to complain about non-solids. They're non-solids and a Boolean will take, but we get this nasty face that runs along there. Let's get rid of this face. We can't refine. We use fusion, refine, set that to true. It's not going to work. Come into the fusion and just delete that. So I've deleted the fusion. We've got the two faces there. I can use both of these in a trim. So let's go back to the curves workbench and look from our previous projection from the rear. So I'm going to take this face and trim it against this edge using the trim. That removes that edge there. Now, if we look, it looks like they're separated. So if we zoom right in, looks like we have some separation between those two. We don't have separation there. If we come back to the part workbench, we can take the two surfaces that we want to join, control select those, and use the union tool and select yes. And now when we look and zoom in, you can see that this edge that runs along here, it's all connected. They're not two separate faces there, two separate surfaces. I'll select this one and use the offset. We can see we can get a successful offset, and we'll fill this offset with something like 4 mil. A bit too chunky, so I'm going to take this, move it down to 2 mil. So we've got that there, and OK that. So that's how to use an overbuilt surface and the trim tool. So I hope that was of use, and I hope to see you in the new video.
If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Coffee at ko-fi.com/MANG0, or via PayPal at paypal.com/PayPalMe/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.